1 year ago, two women sat down and had a conversation about reinvention. They talked about pivoting, about burnout, and about the courage it takes to start over. They made plans. They made predictions. Then they went their separate ways and actually tried to live it. What happened next? That is exactly what today is about. Welcome to the Comeback Show. I'm Jenn Fast, founder of Reinvention with Jenn Fast, and your host for this space where we talk honestly about the messy, beautiful, and sometimes painful process of rebuilding your life in midlife and beyond. If you've ever felt like you were becoming someone new but weren't quite sure who that person was yet, this show is for you. Pull up a chair, you belong here. My guest today holds a very special place in my podcasting history. She was the very first guest I ever had on a podcast. That was my now retired Productive AF podcast, almost exactly 1 year ago. I have since started 2 other podcasts, including this one. And so much else has changed since we sat down together for both of us. That is exactly why she is back. Natalie Beard is the founder of Soul Wealth Rebirth, creator of the Soul Wealth Chronicles, and host of Becoming Natalie, the Soul Wealth podcast. Her work is a reflective storytelling platform that explores reinvention, burnout recovery, identity transformation, and what she calls soft success after life falls apart. I want you to sit with that phrase for just a moment. Soft success after life falls apart. Because I think so many of us have spent decades chasing a version of success that was never really ours. And Natalie has a lot to say about what happens when you finally let that go. Natalie, welcome back.
Thanks, Jen. I'm so happy to be back.
I'm happy you're here. So, you were my very first podcast guest almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
When you think back to where you were when we recorded that first episode, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh, super green with the podcasting. I was at the beginning of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do podcasting. I knew I wanted to get my story out, but I was trying to figure out how in the world was I going to do that. So that's where I was in my life. And you reached out and I said, you know what? I'll talk to her. I'll see what comes out of it. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you were the catalyst that got me started with my own venture.
I'm so glad too. Now, when I reached back out about coming on the Comeback Show, you said our first episode kind of ignited things for you. What got lit?
Well, I first saw a person that I know and admire doing what I wanted to do. So I was like, she's doing it. She pulled the band-aid off and said, let me just go ahead and start doing it. And I had noticed that you had started doing different things. And I was like, oh my gosh, let me see what I can do in this process. And let me see if I can actually do this. And so that's what ignited me. And I think that our conversation as well, me talking about my background and everything that I was going through. And I was saying, oh my gosh, I can see myself doing this. And I was enjoying the actual podcast process. So I said, let me go ahead and start it. And oh my gosh, the rest is history. Let's say that.
Well, it has been exciting to watch you and to see the things that have emerged from that. But let's catch our listeners up. I'm going to give a little update on what has changed with me, and then I'll ask you to do the same thing.
Sure.
So here are the pivotal events from my last 12 months. Probably the biggest change for me was suddenly leaving my 30-year corporate career after a doctor helped me see that my career might be incompatible with my health. And then I had a late ADHD diagnosis, which explained a lot, and it also changed how I approach pretty much everything. At the end of 2025, I joined a business accelerator program that has changed my life and the way that I do business. But through that program, I decided to finally consolidate my 3 brands into one that I call Reinvention with Jenn Fast. And then I started the Comeback Show. Now I'm building a community of women doing exactly what we are doing. Okay, your turn. What are the headline moments of the past year for you?
Well, Jen, it's been a lot. When we initially had our interview, I was trying to figure out myself because I was interested in doing podcasting. I was interested in figuring out how to get my story out there. And so I kind of used you as my template. And so I went ahead and I got with a person who does podcasting. So I hired a person that helped me with that process to build my podcast. And the podcast didn't start right away. But I do recall I was introduced to Substack and I said, you know what? I can start here. This is probably the easiest way for me to start getting my newsletters out there. And so ever since then, I have been consistent. Now, this is something for me, I have never been this consistent with something and actually enjoy doing it. So I enjoy writing these stories, and the stories are lived stories. These are what's happened in my life for the past, uh, at least especially the past 4 years that I've gone through this journey that of becoming. So I have lived experiences that are true and authentic to me that I figured I said, I think a lot of other people may have these same experiences. So I've been sharing that in a storytelling way, and it has been a hit. Right now, I think last week I just published my 83rd newsletter, Soul Wealth Chronicles, as I mentioned with you. So, and I have like a backlog that's ready to go. So I've been writing consistently since then. And then since then, I've also started my podcast, Becoming Natalie, the Soul Wealth Rebirth podcast. And that has become, initially, I was struggling with, okay, do I want to do video recording or do I want to do audio recording? And I had a friend to tell me, well, Natalie, I like to listen to YouTube, but listen to them while I'm driving. I have a long commute to work. And so I like to listen to, Audible books and I like to listen to other stories. I said, well, that probably will be my lane. I said, let me start that route. So, and then I also was like struggling. I was like, what kind of content, what am I going to talk about on this podcast? And I said, when done, Natalie, you have all these chronicles that you have written. Why don't you just talk about those? And so that's what has been my content. They're very short, maybe 4 to 5 minutes, some a little longer podcasts, but they're very good storytelling podcasts, basically, that gets a lot of my story across. And it shows a lot of people as well who may be going through the same thing I'm going through, how to get through it. And I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people, and I've been told that it does. So that's been happening. I'm in the process of trademarking my brand. I developed an LLC. It's taken off. And so I aspire to, still use you as my template because I would love to, in 20 years in my profession, I'm in medical laboratory medicine, but I'm in leadership as well, would love to retire from that as well. So right now, what I'm doing is using my medical background as my bridge to get to that other side of retirement as well. So I've been strategizing ways of using my brand and trying to get to that other side of where I want to be as my brand being my brand fully as my mainstream of income. So eventually that will happen, but for right now, I'll still stay in leadership and medical field. But like I said, this has really taken off, and I see it as something very, very lucrative for my future.
I do too. Yeah. Now, what we did together may have ignited or started a lot of this for you, but I've loved watching you make it your own, do things your own way, and your authentic
Thank
voice
you.
definitely comes through in your content. So I love that. When you look at, you have the LLC, you're doing trademarking in progress right now, the podcast is launched and growing, the book is underway. When you look at all of that together, does it feel the way you thought it would when you started?
Actually, it feels way more exciting because I actually see it developing. At first it was a idea, it was a dream. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to actually just do it. And so once I started doing it, it stopped procrastinating. It's like, I need to trademark my brand because this is something I can see this being something, big in the future. It's taken me a while too. As you can hear, my voice is very tiny, very light, and I didn't like my voice. But I've always been told by other people, even strangers, oh, if you talked, I would listen to you all day long. I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do this podcast, and I'm going to do it in full audio. And I've learned to love my voice. So it's just been a great experience, great about learning more about myself, because that's what it's all about. It's me becoming Natalie, me becoming my true, authentic self, not trying to belong anywhere else, and just basically coming to terms to the person I am and owning it. Being happy for the person that I am and not try to be somebody else.
I'm so glad you decided to keep your voice and appreciated it because it is a wonderful voice to listen to, and that
Thank
just
you.
speaks to your authenticity. Now, both of our podcasts now have listeners all over the world, including Japan, Singapore, and Sweden for me. And your podcast audience includes listeners from China and Germany now. What was it like to see that? What does it tell you about the story that you're telling?
It was like my mind was blown. I said, so this really proves that what I'm talking about is reaching people not just here in the States, but across the world. People who, are have a different culture, a different ethnicity than myself. And it's like, I guess this is universal. So that really became real when I noticed my stats. I said, you know what? I'm just going to check and see how my podcast is doing. I wasn't thinking too much of it because I was like, oh, it's super new. And then when I saw that not only that I had people in the States downloading it, there's people in other countries. And I was like, oh my God, I am worldwide. And yes, I have chills right now just thinking about that. But it's been an excellent and great experience, and I'm so grateful that I'm able to resonate with other people, even in other parts of the world.
You now describe yourself as a stabilizer. That is a powerful reframe from just lab manager or even leader. When did you figure out that's exactly what you are? And what do you mean when you say stabilizer?
It actually took me a long time. Like I said, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I didn't realize because I noticed a pattern. When I start doing a particular job, I've had a lot of jobs, and I would notice after so long, I would get a little bored with it. And what would happen is I always come into positions where there's difficulty or, they're behind on something. And basically, I'm a huge problem solver. So I'm a fixer. I come in, I fix it, stabilize it, and I truly think I'm a person that should be doing something else, like, a consultant or something to that effect. I've been in the leadership role, which is great. But it's like it gets to a certain point, it's like you fix the team and it's like there's nothing broken anymore. So what else can I do? And I actually realized this like earlier this year, believe it or not, about myself. And I'm like, I was like, oh my gosh, I come in, stabilize departments, I stabilize teams. For instance, just where I'm currently at, um, the medical laboratory I started working at last year, there was chaos. Everybody was telling me, oh, you're going to work long hours. The team is very difficult. And it has some difficult moments. We were very short staffed. It just it was a lot. But I found myself doing what I normally do. I go in, I fix it, stabilize it, and now everybody's looking at, oh my gosh, Natalie, your turnaround time is 1 day, 2 days, where it compared to 14, 30 days. We were getting results out for our patients. And so now, and the team is so efficient, and that's why our turnaround time has gotten so much better. They're looking for things to do. And then they're looking at me, Natalie, did our volume drop? I'm like, actually, no, they went up 200 samples per month. And so the production is higher, but yet the staff is so efficient now. We're fully staffed. Everybody's happy. There's a big family vibe going on. Of course, we have our moments. Families have moments too. But I've stabilized the department. They're functioning and doing so much better than they were before. And I noticed that every job I've had, that's happened. Basically, what I do is I come in and I solve problems. So, I come in, solve the problem, find the cause, the root cause, and I fix it. And that's basically what I found that I'm very good at doing. So I've kind of come to a realization like, oh my gosh, I'm 50 years old, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I kind of want to change my career just a little bit to be more of a problem solver, coming in fixing issues or problems for laboratories, since that's my background. Be more of a consultant than to be in leadership, even though I do love leading. I mean, that's one thing. I did take a couple of years and it was just a regular bench tech, as we call it. And I found myself very bored. But I enjoyed leading people. I enjoy helping people and seeing the satisfaction on their faces, once they realize how well they're doing because of something I helped them with. And so that's what the stabilization part came from.
I love that even at our age, you can still evolve your identity and add new things to it. Another part of your bio says soft success after life falls apart. Where did that phrase come from? And when did you know that was exactly the right language you wanted to use?
I just realized, I was a person who, I was like, okay, I gotta get 5 streams of income. I gotta do this and this, and this in order to be successful. And I gotta work till my fingers bleed type, mentality. And then I thought one day, I just sat back, I said, it shouldn't take all of that. I shouldn't have to stay up all hours of the night or work a full-time job and then come home and work another full-time job in order to be happy and at peace and successful. So it's like everything shouldn't be, to be successful shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be a hustle. It shouldn't be a grind. And so that was something within the last year or so that I found out. I just like, okay, Natalie, step back. I was doing a lot of things, I was doing insurance broker. I was doing all kind of other things. And I found myself, I said, this is not making me happy. I may have been I was very good at it. I mean, I'm not going to say that I wasn't, but I just noticed that it wasn't healthy for me. I mean, just like your doctor told you, your lifestyle before was not working for you, not for your health. And I found that for myself as well, kind of diagnosed myself to say, okay, no, Natalie, we need to step back. And ever since doing that, I have become more at peace with myself, more at peace with everything happening in my life, and learning how to sit back and rest and understanding that rest is okay. I was a person, if I rest, people are going to think, oh, she's slowing down or she's not good or she's being lazy, and it's not being lazy. It's taking care of yourself. So that's where I feel, in order to be successful, you shouldn't have to grind. You shouldn't have to go through proving to others. And that's essentially what I was doing, proving that I can do it when I know I can do it.
100%. What you described is hustle culture. And that's
Yes.
something that you've said we've been programmed to believe in. I couldn't agree with you more, of course. Anyone listening to the show knows I had a breaking point at the end of my corporate career. But what about you? Was there a specific moment that you just stopped believing in it?
Yes. What happened was, I think life had just showed it to me. I was trying to fight it. And so my insurance business was not thriving like I thought it was going to. I didn't feel very fulfilled with it. And I had to sit back and say, well, Natalie, if you're feeling this way, why are you pushing yourself? To me, it was like, if I stop, I'm going to look like a failure. And to realize it's not being a failure, it just wasn't aligned with me. It's not, I have to realize that certain things have to be aligned with your life in order to actually work better for you. And this was working totally against me. And I was thinking, well, I had to work harder and harder and harder. But then I found it's like I was continuously going through a circle like a loop. And I had to stop. And it was hard to stop, honestly. But once I stopped, and at first it was like, oh my gosh, nothing's happening. It's very stagnant. I guess I'm so used to chaos, you know.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that life doesn't have to be chaotic. It could be peaceful. And I was so not used to being peaceful that it felt really awkward and like I felt out of place. But now I'm totally like, okay, I will never go back to that again. Never. And I've been content and happy and stable. I stabilized myself, basically. Stabilizing everybody else. What about Natalie? I didn't think about stabilizing me. And so that's when I started stabilizing myself. And I'm so happy I did that.
I'm glad you listened to your intuition there. Because for me, I see the alternative to hustle as intuitive productivity or capacity aware planning, both of which I've talked about before on the show. For you, you've described going inward as the alternative to hustle. What does that look like in your everyday life? Can you walk us through it?
Going inward basically is doing a pulse test, as you may say. It's checking in with yourself. Natalie, how are you feeling today? I have a slight headache. Should you push yourself today or do you want to just do, enough to get by? And that's why I have to kind of sit with myself because I was always going, 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 not paying attention to my health, not paying attention to how I felt. That was the hustle culture, to keep going. And so once you learn how to slow down and stabilize yourself, you learn how to take pulse checks. How are you feeling today? Okay, I'm tired. Do you feel like even going into work today? You know, and if I didn't, don't feel bad for not going in. You know, that I had to really take that in and understand and make it okay. Whereas before, like I said, we've been so programmed to be such workhorses. Um, we didn't know how to rest. And so I had to learn that. It was very difficult, but I've learned it finally. And I do it every day. It's like last night, I was a little nervous because I was like, I woke up in the middle of the night, wide awake. I went to sleep. Then it was like when I woke up, I was tired. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do this podcast. I want to be myself. And I said, let me get outside. So a lot of times we go outside, get in the sun, even just walking around. I have two Yorkies, so they keep me busy. And so that kind of woke me up and kind of changed my way. Because old Natalie probably would have been like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it today, or I'm not feeling well. And so I had to have to learn and, like I said, do like a pulse check, figure out is there something I can do to kind of change this. And sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you're like, okay, I just cannot get through today. I'm just gonna tell them I can't make it or what have you, and it's okay. Um, People pleaser Natalie would have been very like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm letting somebody down. But you have to learn how to take care of yourself. And if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. So I had to learn how to take care of me.
I can totally validate that because I have to do something similar. With my ADHD, I tend to hyper focus on something. And when I do that, I blank out everything else. I ignore hunger cues, deadlines, notifications that pop up on my phone. I will ignore that for hours. And then when I surface, I realize I don't feel good. I'm dehydrated. I have a headache now. I'm tired. So I pause several times a day and ask, okay, what do I need right now? And do I need to alter my plan for the rest of the day to accommodate that? It's really about putting ourselves first. But as women, we feel guilty when we do that, right? What do you say to the woman who hears the term soft success and immediately feels guilty, like she's giving up or settling? What do you want her to know?
I want her to understand and know that it's okay to have that soft success. I know a lot of women aspire to have the soft success and then they're like, no, I can't do that. You actually can. It's not easy because, especially like I say, you have to learn how to deprogram yourself from doing it. So there's tools out there that you can use, somatic exercises, breathing exercises. And I mean, even if it's just talking to a counselor to kind of give you some tips and tricks on how to get through your day. You don't have to be going through a very depressive moment to go to a counselor. I mean, I think everyone should have their own counselor just to get through everyday life. If you look at it, our lives are not easy. It's good to have somebody, if not a counselor, a good friend to talk to with an ear, you know, and be okay to discuss with your friend and not feel that you're a burden. And I say this because I was that person. I felt like if I talked to them about my problems, I would listen to your burdens all day long. It would take all your negativity and just take it all in because I'm an empath. But I didn't think about doing it to others because I felt if I'd said it, I'll be a burden. And then I had to have friends to kind of tell me, Natalie, you knucklehead, girl, come talk to me. It's okay. and I won't think less of you. And just to understand it's okay. Take the time. Soft success doesn't mean you have to be rich and doing all these pampering things. It could be just something simple as staying at home watching TV in your pajamas. That could be soft success. It could be whatever you want it to be. Anything you enjoy doing. If you want to have a cheat day, that could be your soft success day. And you can start small. It doesn't have to be something huge and big. But it could be something small. Like mine is, sometimes I have to sit down and my dogs kind of remind me, okay, be here with me. Look in my eyes. My Yorkie's always in my face. And so you have to kind of sit back and like, okay, I'm sorry, mommy's here. Just take it one little thing at a time. You'll have 100 little small things to happen and not expect something huge, big, soft success to happen, if that makes any sense. Take it every day at a time and just find what little things that you enjoy doing and just do it.
You and I arrived at similar places, but we had very different journeys. What is the thing about your own reinvention that has surprised you the most, or something that happened that you didn't predict at all?
Well, it was once I started slowing down, I started looking at myself and saying, oh my gosh, I actually was doing this to cause this. I'm thinking, I didn't know I was the problem. Sometimes you don't look at it like, okay, I'm fixing everybody else's problems, but I'm not looking at myself. I'm not trying to fix my problems. And so once I sat down and started slowing down and stopped trying to do this, and this, and I had nothing but time to kind of look back at myself, that's when it was like, it clicked in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's me. Now let me go about doing this a certain way or a different way, And then I do find myself doing some old things that I used to do. But the difference now is that I catch myself. I am like, okay, Natalie, let's redirect. So, it's been totally different. And it's just, I don't know, sometimes life comes at you certain ways too to kind of force you to go that route. And I think that happened for me. I had a lot of life situation events that happened in my life that kind of forced me to kind of slow down and listen to myself and listen to my body. But if you can listen to me, a person who went through it the hard way, if I can tell you the easier way to get through it, you can kind of avoid those things. Because a lot of what I went through, oh my gosh, I wouldn't put that on the worst enemy. So it's just a lot that I went through, especially the past 3 years, I would say. But it was about me learning how to surrender and to ask for help and to just slow down and just take a breath. Now I see stuff. I'm walking the dogs, and this morning I heard a crow and I saw a crow. Other times, who pays attention to those things? You're like tunnel vision. I'm just walking my dogs. I just want to get through this walk. I learned how to enjoy the walks, and so you notice a lot of things. You'll notice patterns. You'll notice a lot of things that the old Natalie would have just like, I'm just in tunnel vision. I'm looking straight ahead and not paying attention to what's around me. So it's been a very enlightening journey, to say the least. And I'm so grateful, even though it was very difficult, but I'm so grateful that I went through it. It's made me a better person. It's caused me to learn more about me.
I love that you slow down now and you're more present and you enjoy your life a lot more, because that's the whole point. If you could sit down with Natalie from a year ago or 3 years ago, what would you tell her today?
It's like I said with the soft success. You don't have to have grand things to happen in your life in order for things to change. It could take small steps. What I had to learn was, like I always said, keep the faith. My mother always said that, keep the faith. And it's like I always said it, but did I actually mean it or feel it? And I actually had to feel that, not always feel like I had to know what was next. Just allow things to come at you as they come. And, and then go about your life that way. And that I had to learn that, because I was a person I was like, okay, I would sit there and be a nervous wreck about something that could happen. And it's not the future, it hasn't gotten here yet. And so a lot of that is not true. And so it's like a psychological thing. You kind of, stress yourself out because you're like, oh my gosh, this time next year, what am I going to, am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? And it's like, I had to learn how to say, everything is not a big grandiose thing. And sometimes we want it to be that way. Oh, I'll win $1 million and become debt free. It doesn't happen like that sometimes. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. But understand that, paying off a little debt here and there. And next thing you know, you paid off a bill. Everything doesn't have to be big and grand. You can have 100 small little things that will get you in the same direction within the same amount of time.
I'd love to shift the focus a little bit to your newsletters because, of course, I read them. And in one of them, you talked about perimenopause and you included a note directly to the men reading it. What made you do that?
Well, because I understand, at first my brand was more geared towards women 40 and over, going through menopause, or going through changes in their life, life changes, career changes. And then I found that there was a lot of men who were commenting as well. I really enjoy your newsletters. This resonated, that resonated. And I was like, okay, I don't want to leave them out. You know, and just to understand that we go through perimenopause and a lot of times we don't understand because unfortunately our parents, that generation, didn't teach us a lot about those things. My mother never said anything. I mean, we sensed something because me and my sisters were like, oh my gosh, mother's a little different, you know but we didn't realize what was happening and she didn't talk about it, so we didn't really know. But now, which is great, a lot of people in our age group we're talking about it. And so that's why I've learned a lot. And we're because we were, women are supposed to be seen and not heard, and so we're not supposed to complain. We're not supposed to, we're supposed to just toughen it out. And now we're all saying, no, we're going to talk about it. And to know that what I'm going through, another person going through the same thing. And so, but I also recognize that you have family, people who have children, who have sons. Like I said, we witnessed our mother and we didn't know what was going on with her. But I could think about a little boy and their mother, or a young man and their mother has changed and they don't understand what's going on, or the husband or the boyfriend, whomever, they are witnessing this as well because they see a personality change in a person that they once knew as this person, but now it seems like they changed into a whole different other person. So they have to actually go through this process just like we have to go through this process. You may not feel the way we feel, but they have to understand and say, okay, mommy's going through something, or my wife is going through something, and not feel that it's something against them. Because a lot of times we don't realize that we're actually going through a menopause symptom, until we get treated for it. So a lot of men, they may take it, negatively or personal. And so that's why I put that little snippet out there. I'm like, sorry, but we go through changes, and I understand that you guys go through it as well, along with the female in your life. So that's why I had to put a little snippet in there just to encourage the male generation as well, the male gender, about that, because it's not just us going through it, they're witnessing it as well.
Yeah, I love that you invited men to enter the conversation. I know that diversity of perspective is something that's real important to both of us. And for that reason, a few of my upcoming guests are actually going to be men as well. Because I
Nice.
think a lot of us are so deep in our own becoming and our own journeys that we forget to look up and realize who's around us. What do you think women need to understand about what the men in our lives are going through during this midlife season?
Understand that they're actually going through their own little midlife, I would say, crisis, but they're also going through their own becoming as well. One thing about men, unfortunately, they're not as outspoken about those things, like women are. More women are going for help. They're getting assistance, and more women are starting to talk about these things. Where in the male, world, they still want to be tough and rough, and they don't want to show any softness. So they deserve to have a soft success as well, you know. But every person has their own journey that they go through to get to where we are. I have a friend, he's on Substack as well, and he went through a very debilitating issue where he's now in a wheelchair. that taught him how to kind of slow down. Because he was one that was hustle, 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 and then he was forced to be stable. And so he took that instead of going the route of, depression, which he did have depression, but he also learned a lot about himself through that process, just to understand that it's not just women going through things, men go through it as well. So we all are having our becoming moments, but we all just have to get about it a different way than everybody else. So everybody's story is different.
For sure. Yeah. Now, we have both been finding our people this year, the ones that actually get us and what we teach. That has probably been the biggest surprise for me, being able to build that community of supportive women around me. I didn't actively plan for it, but it is changing the way that I do business. What has finding your people look like for you?
Oh my gosh, it makes you understand their people can be family and not blood. And I was doing all this trying to belong. I was trying to do all this belonging, trying to be in this group and that group and that group. And once I started opening my mouth and talking about my situation, I started finding people here and there who were like, oh, I'm going through the same thing. And so when you find that you're going through same situations, you find your people. And so sometimes it just means you get out there and you may see a little head pop up. I have my dog in my lap. So, you may have a situation, now where if you start talking about it or looking it up. I mean, just doing just a simple search on a search engine or YouTube or even now TikTok. I love TikTok. Facebook and Instagram are great, but TikTok to me is more educational. And so sometimes when if I'm going through a symptom or if I'm trying to figure something out or if I have a thought process, I just type it in TikTok and then I hear other people talking about it. And I'm like, I found my people, you know? And so you just find different ways. Sometimes it doesn't mean going out and trying to force yourself to belong in a group. You may find your group online. And then sometimes you might find where, you'll see that person lives nearby. So you can reach out to that person. And then you're not going to probably find somebody who is exactly like you, but they all have attributes, the certain things about you that are similar. And so to me, it's like understanding that, like I said, these people can be family and they're not blood. It doesn't have to be your blood sister or brother or mother or father or uncle, because sometimes they don't get it. A lot of times your family does not get you. My family didn't get me. They're slowly getting me now. And what's so great is my chronicles, my newsletters have helped them to understand me better. You try to explain stuff and tell them, but it'll always go over their head. But them reading it now, because like my sister came to me, she said, I did not know. And I was like, I told you. But she had to sit back and read about it to understand. She's like, oh, I see now, why you were going through this and why you didn't feel comfortable saying that. Especially if you're going through something and you feel like you're the only person that's going through it. Like I said, if you don't say it, you won't realize that other people are going through the same thing that you're going through as well.
Absolutely. There's something else that you said that I keep coming back to in our last conversation. We were talking about the power of women supporting each other rather than competing with each other. And what you said was, it's not a crowded space. Everyone can have their own story and their own way of delivering it. Can you say more about that? Because I think women in this space need to hear about it.
That's one thing, because I was concerned. I was like, I know a lot of people are talking about what I'm talking about, but I may be delivering it differently, or I might have a different story to tell compared to somebody else. There's always space. And that's one thing us women need to be more encouraging to one another and not against one another. There's no competition. There's enough room for us here, and everybody has their own. It's just understanding that we may have similar situations or similar problems, but we got to that problem, had that problem from a different atmosphere. So what I say may be totally different than what you say, but we got to the same ending. If that makes any sense. So I think encouraging others, just like me and Jen, we're always supporting each other. I'm so proud of her, to see her come from what she started doing as well. You know, we were just two ladies that knew each other in Seattle when I was living there. Had no idea. A few years later, look at us. You know, what's that? Paul Rudd would say, look at us now." You know, I mean, this is amazing, and I'm so proud of both of us. And it's okay to be proud of, you know, your fellow woman, you know, and support them. Work together. You know, I may have more strengths in certain things, and the other person may have more strengths in another. Work together. You know, that's how it works out. So just know that it's okay. It's enough room for all of us in this world.
Absolutely. I think that we were conditioned for a long time to compete with each other for whatever reason, even in a space where there's just room for everybody. I love the idea of functional sisterhood. What do you think about when you hear that term? What would that look like for you?
Functional sisterhood. Yeah. I mean, when you said that, I was like, oh, I was like, bing, that sounds like a great idea. But yeah, it's more functioning. It's, you know, you're working together, you're not working apart from each other. Like I said, everybody has certain strengths. Bring those strengths together and you can make a, I mean, be a powerful being. You know, one is one, as we say. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but we can all be one together. You know, it's working together. It's way less, you know, stressful. And you'll notice that, you know, once you take that time to say, okay, Natalie is strong at storytelling. Jen's very organized and she can get it all put together and edited and blah, blah, blah. You know, you work together, you have a masterpiece on your hand. And I think if we all work that way, that we will have so much harmony, you know, in the world, not just this country. And we've been so programmed in that way. But I'm starting to notice more people are starting to wake up. More people are starting to say, you know what? I don't have to be in competition with her anymore. There's no point in having competition. We all have our own little things that work great. And we may come to the same conclusion, but she didn't get to it this way like I did. And so you just have to look at it differently and just sit back. You know, like I said, the stabilizing thing, it works. If you sit and do nothing, you will learn how your brain will just get quiet and you'll learn about how you are as a person. I mean, it sounds crazy, it sounds simple. It's not, because I didn't realize how much my brain, I was just I'm an overthinker, oh my gosh. And so I didn't realize how much was going in my brain until one morning, because sometimes, you know, how you start waking up and first thing my brain does is like, okay, um, blah, 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 my day. What I got to do at work, got to do at work. Now, when I wake up, it's silence. And it just took me one day. I was like, you know what? I didn't wake up with a lot of stuff going on in my brain this morning. And it's the weirdest thing, but and I'm like, I'm actually at peace. So it's like, it's possible, ladies. I promise you it is. Sometimes you just have to just stop and just sit back and just allow yourself to come to you.
I love that. And I loved your description of functional sisterhood. I'm seeing a lot of the same things in the communities that I'm in and the women that I'm meeting. We're not just passively supporting each other, but we're actively doing things to support each other. And that has been wonderful. Well, Natalie, as always, you have been so generous with your time and your heart. But before I let you go, as you know, I always end with the same question for all my guests. For someone listening right now who's still in the thick of it, is still in the messy middle and not sure how they come out on the other side, if they could walk away with only one message from our conversation today, what do you want them to know?
That's a great question. You know, I go back to having that faith. You don't have to know or have the whole path or know what's coming. Take little bitty steps in faith. And I promise you, it will get you there. And you'll be very surprised how most of the transformations happen when you do small little steps instead of one huge one. So there's a quote that I love. It's Dr. Martin Luther King who says, take the first step. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. Once you do that, you rip that Band-Aid off, you take that first step blindly, and I promise you a whole new world will be in your face.
I love that. Thank you for that. Well, this conversation was everything I hoped it would be, and honestly, a little more. For me,
Oh,
it really illustrated the difference just 1 year can make if you're open to new ways of thinking, if you're open to opportunities, and if you just take action, like you said, no matter how small, towards your goals. Natalie, thank you for your support, for believing in me, for your honesty, for your warmth, and for trusting me and this space with your story twice.
yes.
If you would like to find Natalie and follow her journey, her website and Substack home base is soulwealthrebirth.com. That's where you will find Soul Wealth Chronicles, her newsletter. Her podcast is called Becoming Natalie, the Soul Wealth Podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you listen. And of course, the link is going to be in the show notes for all of this. If you want to reach out to Natalie directly, whether it's about her consulting work or to tell her something that she said landed for you, you can email her at soulwealthrebirth@gmail.com or just connect with her through Substack and send her a direct message. And to everyone listening, wherever you are in your journey right now, the fact that you found this episode, that you pressed play, that you stayed until the end, that is not nothing. That is you choosing yourself. And if you know someone who should hear some of the messages we talked about today, please send them to this podcast. If you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. And the best way to support this show or any other is to leave a 5-star review. Those really do go a long way towards helping other women find us. A comeback is not one big dramatic moment. It is quiet choices made every day to keep moving forward toward the life that actually fits you. You are making those choices right now just by being here. And for that, I thank you. I'm Jenn Fast, and I'll see you next time on The Comeback Show.